Welcome to Spoiler Talk, where we talk spoilers. My name is Keiran, and with me on the line is Jax.
Hey.
This week we are talking about Mortal Instruments, City of the Engines.
Mortal Engines, how dare you?
That's it.
How dare you, quite frankly, how dare you get the name wrong? You son of a bitch.
Mortal Engines.
I think you've spoiled your opinion on this movie. And we're gonna come to blows, finally.
It's because I even though I know you said Mortal Engines, for some reason I went and Googled Mortal Instruments after we talked about it.
City of the Bones or whatever, yeah.
And was like thoroughly confused for a moment of, you know, just being like, wait, this isn't the big city on wheels thing. And then realizing So this movie is not directed by Peter Jackson.
Absolutely not, yeah. Although they really, really wanted to make you feel like maybe it was.
Yeah, they really
From the guys who made Lord of the Rings. From a bunch of people that were maybe on the set of Lord of the Rings and The Hobbit.
Did we mention Weta? Oh,
yeah. New Zealand? Maybe? I don't know.
The few New Zealand cast members, it seemed, and Australians, and yeah, it felt like that kind of middle 2000s period when a lot of stuff, early to mid 2000s, when a lot of stuff was being produced in Australia and New Zealand. It reminded me of that era a little, but also the film kind of reminded me of, you know, Wingnut and which is Peter Jackson's production company, and Weta's kind of Lord of the Rings heyday, but also a lot of the parts of The Hobbit.
It reminded me way more of The Hobbit than Lord of the Rings visually. It felt like...
And you know, all it boils down to, so much has been said of the high frame rate with The Hobbit, but I think that was all wrong, to be honest, and I think this movie proves that ultimately...
Wait, what do you mean? Sorry.
Yeah, I'm elaborating.
Sorry.
Ultimately, the undoing of... It seems Weta, in large part, their production elements. I mean, the sets and the props and all of those things look great when they're shot on film in a lower resolution. But as soon as you roll in your 8K super high definition ARRI Alexa, whatever the hell they're shooting on now, the illusion of the world is lost. And really, like, so many sets in this movie flashed me back to sets on The Hobbit. Like, who's the big wolf guy that they go and have breakfast at the beginning of the second one? Can't remember his name.
Bard, is it?
Bard? No, not Bard. Bard's the bowman. It's another guy, probably with a B name, but he's like
Bjorn?
Bjorn? Yes, yeah, that's it. I'm pretty sure that's it.
Which one? Bjorn?
I think it's
Bjorn.
Bjorn.
The bear. Bjorn the bear.
Yeah, and that really, and that whole kind of part of the movie reminds me of it the most, where it's like these big high def cameras, and really I probably would have believed this set if it was lit and shot the way they did things in the early 2000s when Lord of the Rings came out, because the actual production on display is brilliant and the sets look good. They look great, but you're almost lacking, you're over-resolving the detail to the point that you've destroyed the illusion for so many people, and almost the higher definition things get, the more I'm disconnected from the illusion of the world you're trying to build. And then if the other elements in the film aren't working, what I'm just left with is like a pretty good visual effects showreel with not a whole lot else. Like I get why this movie wasn't successful critically and financially, and it's not the worst thing ever, but it just kind of feels a little too familiar. But also the differentiating points to it are so crazy that they should have been crazier, or they should have really doubled down on trying to go for realism, and they don't really go for either. And I don't think they
realism
really achieve...
in there. Our cities on wheels eating smaller cities.
Which you can do that, and you can really make that city, that one city that maybe we just get glimpses of, and maybe we only get angles like low down, people just escaping it, and really sell the scale of the thing. But when you show me the entire thing in a big wide establishing shot, and we zoom and zip through it, and I know kind of how everything's going, the whole thing just kind of falls apart very quickly. And then I'm left going, all right, you know what? Like, if it's a big city of London, you know, rolling towards a big United States, and they're going to crash into each other and consume each other, and big city engines eating one another. All right, I'm going to be in for that too, because, you know, you haven't done the other way. I would have done one of those too. I would have gone, really kind of reined it back in and tried to really sell the scale of a lot of the stuff in this movie, or gone down the avenue they went down, but doubled down much harder and just had like crazy city destruction,
city on city action.
Like
more
go all the way
style, kind of.
I mean,
well,
just in some ways,
of like, I guess I just mean in terms of like, I don't know, because for me, the first like 25 minutes of this movie, I fucking crave. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of love this movie, like, for all its flaws. But I really liked... I don't love this movie. The movie's fine. I love the first 25, 30 minutes. I think when it starts and they're like, we're a big city, we're gonna go, like, fucking attack this little city, and everyone, all the little cities all, like, run away and, like, disband, and there's one, and they're trying to, like, get the engines working, and then it's going, and it's... I like just the setup. I like the setup of, like, the main female lead is, like, murders... like the main villain straight away. That's like, oh, she's not going to be our regular main character. Kind of turns out to be more standard bulk hero. But I feel like the start with its action, with it's a chase music going. And I don't know, it's bombastic enough. It's got that Hollywood sheen and production to like a Howl's Moving Castle-esque city of just bits and bobs all smashed together, and I don't know. I think visually, they work for me at least. Like pretty. I don't know. I really like the start. Like when it opens up its guts, and that guy's like, consume them or whatever, and it like pulls it in, and it all kind of comes clamoring in, and then it closes, and you've got the big the Union Jack. Yeah, the big flag Union Jack kind of like imprinted on the front, and it's like boom, mortal engines. I was like, oh fuck yeah, I'm totally in on this ludicrous premise of big cities chasing little cities. But I feel like maybe I don't know, I just preferred the final act to be that again, but I don't know. I really like that start and like the setup of this universe, but it doesn't really seem to be interested in doing, I don't know, that much with big cities chasing little cities, which is really fun to me. It's kind of like Mad Max, but on crack. Like, I don't know.
It's funny you mentioned Mad Max, because a lot of the musical riffs
the same. It's just Fury Road. It's the same, like...
Which kind of shamefully so.
To the point where I listen to that type of music non-stop. I mean, you know, I'm saying more to people listening, I suppose. But I listen to that kind of like that kind of building and driving and that chase kind of like the high strings and that really like quick kind of music. And I was literally listening to this soundtrack like this morning, listened to 3 or 4 songs, and then a song came on where I was like, oh, this doesn't sound like it's Mortal Engines anymore. But I couldn't tell you what it was. Clicked on my YouTubes, and it was from Batman and Superman, or Man of Steel. And I was like, yep. Because to me, it's Fury Road and Batman vs. Superman. It's those two soundtracks blended in this really weird way. And it is shameless. It is shameless, because it's just the same stuff. Like,
yeah, a lot of the same. And
I guess no one saw this, so no one noticed. You know?
And they also kind of try to do the Lord of the Rings thing, where like every character gets a little musical piece, and then every time they're shown, their little musical number plays, and then
I only remember that for one character, but
is it the Scottish zombie thing?
For a second you said Scottish. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm meaning the zombie cowboy in this movie. What's he doing in the movie? It's so good. Oh, I love it so much. That's the main reason I want to watch this movie and talk about it with you this way, because I watched this 2 years ago or so when I was overseas, just at this guy's house, chucked it on, and all I remember was being like, oh, that's pretty fun, and there's a weird zombie character that's way out of place. He's even more out of place than I remember, but yeah.
Yeah, it kind of is. I don't know what he was doing there, what the purpose of the character was. The entire arc, if you would even call it that, is just confusing and bewildering and and constantly contradicting itself. I mean, this machine loves to do nothing but tell you how little emotion it has, yet the only time it interacts with another character seems to consistently display affection for and emotion for promises that it once had, and then
you promised me.
Yeah, like, wait, you can just slaughter an entire ship of people, but then you have a weird distorted promise ethic that you subscribe to. I don't understand.
You're chasing her down because of the only
yeah, like, and what are you gonna do when you get her? Just take her against her will, and like that doesn't matter, but a promise matters. Okay, cool. I'm tracking your logic here. Terribly written character. I kind of felt like every character in this kind of felt like every character in the last Star Wars movie, where it's just like a bunch of kind of vaguely familiar people that maybe you could have done something more interesting with, but instead chose to do nothing. And now none of these characters are really characters at all, and they're just like the chick in red, who's the best badass chick.
The Matrix character.
Another character. I feel like everyone in this movie is out of place. Every character, everything.
Okay.
It just feels weird and...
Because I think the main girl and Hugo Weaving totally fit the world they're in. And
I think the costumes are what is doing it for me. Are disconnecting me constantly.
Oh my god,
reality.
it might just be their costumes.
Yeah, the costumes are no good and they don't match the world they're in.
Like, I sat there, I just got a big new TV. It's the first film, I've been playing games on it, but it's the first film I sat down and watched. And it looks so good, man. Like, I don't know. I felt this film looked so good. Like, I just had fun watching it. It was just like a fun, non-offensive...
See, that's what I mean. You just bought a new TV. So, from a technical perspective, this TV in HD on your new screen, just like on mine, looks really good and sharp and crisp. But I don't care.
Oh, see, I did care. Like, I cared that, like if I have a big city chasing another city, I want to be like, damn,
it's not a city.
What do you mean?
There's one city chasing.
Oh,
like,
they're little towns. Yeah.
Well, fucking live up to that promise that you made in the trailer.
I never saw the trailer. Oh, I would have years ago, but
I saw the trailer and I'm like, all right, well, there's a promise that you're making here that I don't care about, so I'm just not going to watch, which I think most people chose not to. This movie isn't terrible, by the way. It's not the worst thing ever. It's not doing anything particularly badly. It's just it's not trying to do anything new or particularly interesting, and it just seems very bogged down in trying to half flesh out all of these characters, but it's not even trying to do it. I don't know what it's trying to do. Every character has it almost makes me think Lord of the Rings is just a big fluke in a weird way.
All good movies are flukes. The only reason this isn't good and Star Wars is just something. Like, it's just something. Because if you said Lord of the Rings, but Lord of the Rings, for instance, every single time I watch Lord of the Rings now, and just so everyone's aware, it's my favorite movie ever. Fellowship of the Ring is the single best movie ever. But you know who isn't a good character? Legolas. He's a man who appears and just says, he's like, hey, I'm racist against dwarves. Fuck you. And then at the end of the third movie, he's like, how about side by side with a friend? It's like, they're very loose. And it's what this movie would be if it was a trilogy with loose characters, but it just doesn't work for people. So we're not getting a trilogy. And I'm not saying that this movie is anything like Lord of the Rings, but things like a Lord of the Rings, I think, are just flukes. This could have been the biggest new thing if something about it had, like, sparked, like someone's performance in it, or... There's nothing. I had a lot of fun with this, but there's nothing like that in this film. I'm sad that it flopped, that we don't get another film, because it's like, what even would it be? Because this movie is like, all right, first act, big city chases little city. Main character tries to murder main villain. Second act, zombie chases character. And it's like a different movie all of a sudden. It's like, all right, we've got this zombie. The zombie's going to chase this woman. He's going to have two confrontations with the main character, both on very thin, like, like high up areas where they can fall, and it's got this weird aesthetic like decision.
You know, that's another weird thing that I noticed consistently throughout the movie is that there's so many shots of people standing on top of incredibly high vehicles with no wind blowing.
Oh, yeah. I didn't notice that, but if I had, that would have pissed me off.
It did, and especially like right at the end when they're flying away in the red jet, and it's the female and male lead together, and they're standing on like the back of the ship, and there is like the very light, like if you turn your fan onto the lowest setting,
the hair's got that sexy wave going.
Well, not even because then it's also on the tilt setting where it moves away from you and then back for a second. So you're only really getting a little bit of it on one character. Sometimes. Yeah, that's...
I knew you were going to hate this, but I'm glad how much you hate it, because I had so much fun watching it.
But I don't even know if I do hate it that much, because, like, it just feels like... I don't know that I can pinpoint any one thing. I think it's just... Not really the villain isn't working, none of the characters are really working, they're not really trying to make them work for some reason. Like, there's like a revelation at the end that he's the father, and I was like, is this a revelation? Didn't we see him and the mum like together a lot when she was a child? Like, was I not meant to just assume that he was the dad already? Like, was there some suggestion that he wasn't in the first place?
No, but I think that was just meant to be the confirmation. Like, oh, you thought maybe I fucked her and you're the daughter, but this is the confirmation.
And then she doesn't even really respond,
her response is it's
let
a
him
weird
take the gun
moment. Yeah.
Yeah.
For me,
he just overpowers her after
for me, I feel
doing
like
everything she can to chase this guy down, and after stabbing him in the stomach and doing all of that, she just lets him take the gun off her and be immediately overpowered. Like, the relentless woman who has just gone to the ends of the earth to do impossible things to get into this city to stab. There's also 3 too many people getting stabbed in the stomach or chest moments, I think, in this. Just a lot of people.
I don't remember that.
With a blade in the red girl gets a blade in the stomach, and then he gets a blade in the stomach at the start. Someone else gets a blade. The big robot gets a blade in the chest. There's a lot from a shoe. Also, they're riddling the monster with bullets and just throwing everything they can at this unstoppable creation. And then she stabs him with a knife in her shoe, and that undoes him. And then he dies. The big thing that they keep setting up that has its own little motif, its own little song that they keep playing to us. Telling us this character is important. You know, we're gonna do more with this character later. Really, like, pay attention to this character. And then the character just dies and nothing happens.
You know what?
I thought she was gonna go turn herself into a robot and go fight him.
That would have been wild.
Of course, because that's what they were setting up the whole movie. What the fuck didn't they do that for? Go and turn into a... You can't kill him, yeah? You got fucked up the first time, so you go back and you become a monster and you go fucking kill your dad, and then he tells you he's dad and you're like, oh, do I have robot feelings now? I don't know, that's something.
No, that's awesome. I think you know
it's not even awesome, it's just better than nothing.
Oh yeah, I mean, I say that's awesome, but I thought this movie was kind of awesome in its stupid... But like, I guess part of me is like, I can't tell you exactly how I remember feeling a couple of years ago when I watched it, but I was a little underwhelmed, but mildly entertained. But I think rewatching it when the bizarre zombie cowboy father figure who's got emotions, but he's like, I don't have any emotions. Shut up. I'm not crying. You're crying. Shut up. It's like that whole vibe. Because I remember when he came into it again, I wasn't like, this stupid zombie thing.
No, I was like, this is the most interesting part of this movie. That was.
It's so cool. But for me, I guess, it's those things don't strike out as like the issues. Whereas more, it's like, I find it kind of amazing that 40 minutes into this, Hugo Weaving accidentally essentially gets told like, oh, you tried to kill this chick? This bounty hunter resurrected zombie man we just picked up, he's in holding at the moment, screaming her name. Just go get him. And then for the next 45 minutes, he's the main antagonist. and then he's dead and he's out of the movie. It's Act 2. He's introduced 40 minutes in, I checked, and an hour and 20 in, he dies. Like, it's just the middle act. He's there for a few scenes where he rocks up and he's like, Hester! I like his vibe. I like his green glowing eyes. I like the dun 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 music that plays with him. It was just so stupid and dumb. I was like, I don't know, man. I was having a lot of fun with it. I thought the scene where the chick, the red Matrix, I'm cool, I've got knives in my boots chick.
I know your mum, yeah.
Yeah. The classic kind of that, but shitty version. Real shitty. Yeah. I didn't love her, but even the bit where she's like got the ship and she's coming down and she's like, get in the ship, and the maid girl gets in the ship and then like she takes the ship away and like the guy's like, oh no, and they're like, that rope scene kind of remind me of in Jurassic World 2, where the rope scene where it's like, I'm getting away, then the dinosaur eats him but then misses, then the other dinosaur gets him. So I don't know, maybe I just kind of like people hanging from ropes and really overt kind of dramatic scenes, but I thought that, I don't know, I really like the visual of that zombie man. Like, when the movie starts and we've got a bloody big mountain of a city with all these cogs and parts, it's got this kind of steampunk machinery vibe. The whole vibe of that universe, to me, doesn't really scream zombie, green, glowing eyes, cowboy. Do you know what I mean? Whereas the fact that he's in the movie for the middle act, I think is why I kind of love this movie. Because I think as soon as they get kicked off the ship and he's like, oh, murder, it's a dangerous word to hear, character from Misfits, and he kicks that character off. As soon as that happens, I think most of the movie doesn't work for me. But this like fucking zombie in this movie, this unexplained zombie, kind of like, I don't know, I guess it just keeps me invested enough where I'm like, what? What the fuck? Like, what is this? What is this universe? What is happening? What is this?
The second act, they go to a big patchwork hot air balloon.
It is the coolest and dumbest thing I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, appears to be made out of paper mache.
And there's a sign saying, please don't light any cigarettes or we'll explode.
The fact that you expect me to believe that this post-apocalyptic world and this thing has survived any amount of time at all. I mean, the fact that it blew up immediately after they landed there actually made me happy, because I was like, yeah, this should have blown up immediately after being built in this world.
They're literally there for about 45 seconds before his ship rocks up and fucking blows up the entire place. But okay, so...
And that's where they meet the diversity squad, which takes us to the third act of
the Rebel Alliance! You mean the Rebel Alliance?
Yeah,
And the movie becomes The Force Awakens again?
Yeah, it does. It really does.
But I wrote a list in case I forgot. I've written too many lists. Doesn't matter. Here it is.
Big super weapon.
Final act. Rebels small fighters. Big Death Star style weapon. And you've got a wall instead of like a hole. But you have a character who's like, I've got to get inside the spaceship to shoot the thing. He pulls
with the secret plans Anakin. Or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah, so he does the Anakin from episode 1 while a character is having a Empire Strikes Back moment, while the other others like rebel fighters are like killing the top turrets. So it's episode 4, 5, and 1, all wrapped in one. You've got the I'm your father moment, which is kind of feels like that's why it was there, because he's just like, I'm doing a Star Wars thing.
They don't even have the balls to say it though, so yeah.
Yeah, but you also
kind of dance
and you don't want him to say I think he literally said like, I don't even need to say that I am that thing. You already know, don't you?
And I'm like, because that might be worse than just saying it. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe not. I don't know.
Honestly, at that point in the movie, I'm just like so I'm like, that's fun, whatever. Oh my God, he's like, it's one of those movies where I'm sitting there and he's like, I am the father, Hester. And she's like, oh my God. And I'm like, oh shit, bitch. You know, as I'm sitting there with my popcorn and my soda. I don't know. I feel like this for me is I picked it for a reason. Shitty lockdown times, picked a post-apocalyptic film for the Thin Tail theme, but it's also just like I don't know. I mean, obviously you kind of disagree, but for me, this is kind of this is the best of dumb, bad blockbuster movies. Like, if a movie's going to be dumb and stupid and, you know, not have good emotion, this isn't your bloody Uncut Gems or A Marriage Story. You know, it's like, I don't need every film to be that good that makes me think about life and all that. I just want to have cool set pieces. I want to have fun act. I mean, the action for me kind of is only as good as it is in the first half. The second half, the action actually really isn't that good. But I don't know. There's like a bit where they're running away right at the start. Like she stabs Hugo Weaving and they're running away. And the town that's just been devoured by London starts getting dissected and they're running through that. And
reminded me of the Clone Wars.
So yeah, I was about to say, it reminded me of The Hobbit, Desolation of Smaug. But I don't know, man. It's just like, I don't know, man. It's like a $200 million Doctor Who episode. Don't you reckon, though? And sometimes I want a Doctor Who episode to look like $200 million. Because it looking $40 sometimes, but you know
everything
what I mean,
is a Doctor Who episode because Doctor Who has a premise that involves all of time and space. So I feel like
some.
And we mentioned
You don't want the Doctor Who to go into Marriage Story and be like, all right, guys, let me.
Yes,
sort
I
this.
do.
Oh no! As soon as I said that, I'm like, that's the greatest.
He would fix their marriage. He's the Doctor.
Oh my god!
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'm gonna raise you one, and I was just about to say, imagine if 2 doctors went, they both had to. Oh, it'd be so amazing.
But we mentioned this before the podcast started that if the Doctor was just in this movie, I'm in.
Oh, yeah, this would be the best Doctor Who episode for sure. I would love
far-flung future, cities eating cities. It's kind of. I get what you're saying. It's the right premise for a Doctor Who episode because I'm willing to buy a little bit more of a ludicrous premise because, in the hope that the episode will unfold and there'll be an interesting ethical dilemma or morality tale or something.
If Doctor Who was doing this, the last act wouldn't be a Star Wars parody ripoff. It would be the Doctor being like, the reason this city consumes this city is this, and you'd be like, oh my god, what? It's, and he'd be like, and this, and we're going to do this. And you'd be like, oh my God, he's fixed this universe. He's fixed this cat freeway. He's done it. Or,
I also want to, I want to mention something that I thought about while watching this movie that's kind of disconnected from it, but I think that will have some ramifications in the future. And that's it. There was a pretty horrific event that took place in Lebanon. You probably saw that explosion and all the footage.
Oh, the thing that just happened a day or two ago or whatever?
Yeah, there was some chemicals left somewhere that ignited and this huge explosion.
Yeah, I saw the video. It's utterly fucked. Yeah.
And the shockwave that accompanies it. And I'm just thinking about the massive explosion in this movie, and I was just left with so little awe after seeing it in real life that I realized that, the fact that the world now has seen and digested that explosion and what that explosion looked like will have an effect on the cinematic language of explosions moving forward. That has had, the same way 9/11 had an effect on kind of what citywide destruction would look like in movies moving forward. I think that this event, because it's global news and everyone's seen it, everyone's talking about it, and we're all locked down, so we're all kind of paying attention to things online more than usual. Just seeing the big super weapon explosion in this had so little effect on me. I couldn't believe.
It looks so good. Oh,
no, I thought it. No, because real life looks so much more devastating and horrible. I mean, the shot when they're flying out of the city and they look down at the wreckage is probably the only time you really get a sense of it.
Yeah, like with the whole city's on fire. But the way it does it, it's like when you said Attack of the Clones before. Like, that's not the greatest movie. And the let's not go there. The Boba Fett gun, the bullets he shoots at Obi-Wan when they're doing their little space chase before they go to the little bug planet. And they've got the boom, boom kind of. I'm not doing the sound right. It's the greatest sound. That's actually my favorite sound design of a spacecraft thing. When the bomb goes boom and it kind of loses sound for a second and then goes boing. But they had that same kind of like in this movie, it kind of goes in. It like takes a pause as it sucks everything in and then it rips it out. Like, oh man, that was one of my favorite bits. The only thing that I didn't like about that is that I'm pretty sure the final action scene also is just Korra season 4. The final action scene?
I don't know what that is.
You don't watch... What? Have you not watched all of Legend of Korra?
No.
Oh.
I haven't seen any of it.
Have you seen any of Avatar?
Maybe the first episode.
Oh, this is so weird, man. Because I was literally writing notes like after I watched the movie, being like, just because if I write things, I'll just remember to bring it up here. And I wrote down like, it's like Avatar. Then I'm like, I can't mention that. But then I'm like, no, I can. Kieran's seen
for sure you can.
Avatar and Korra,
but it doesn't matter. No, I haven't.
Oh, that's okay.
I tried to watch the first couple episodes of Avatar, and it was just a little. I feel like maybe if I discovered it a bit earlier.
You know what? This is you're not going to like to hear this. And I don't think because no show ever really deserves to be like, well, if you watch the first season, once you get, but trust me, dude, it's like.
I'm sick of wading through children's entertainment to get to one,
I know.
One story arc that's kind of adult. And then.
This isn't a Clone Wars situation, man. This is season 1 is not very good. And the final few episodes are okay. Season 2 and 3, and I don't know why it is, it's just better. But all I can say is season 1, it's water. Season 2 is earth. Season 3 is fire. And you go to each world. And water, it just kind of opens up the world. The main characters learn that, they're waterbending. They can do some waterbending. It's all very... But season 2 is like Earth Nation. We're going to the Earth Nation. It's under siege. It's like fucking... Nazi-occupied Paris shit, man. Like, we're going in, it's fucked up shit. And all the characters into siege. Good guys are bad guys are good guys. Everything really, you go, this is what the show is. And then, I know you just said that, but it then has a particularly good arc with a minor character. But then season 3, it's like, boom, final act, here we go. You don't even see the villain's face till the final season. It's so good. The finale is like perfect, but it has this bizarrely long first season that really only has like 6 good epis out of 20. I don't know, man. I have another friend that could not finish season 1. He tried like 3 times. So, and I honestly, it's like Doctor Who season 1. It just absolutely wasn't working for me. And I was like, is it because of this and that? And then the worst thing is, you'll never be able to appreciate Korra if you don't watch Avatar. But Korra's so much different. Because Avatar is essentially Harry Potter, it's Lord of the Rings, it's all those stories where it's like, Avatar is like, I'm the hero, I'm a little boy, and I'm the best man in the world, I'm a Harry Potter. And he has his own Voldemort. And then, spoilers, that's resolved by the end of his show. So the next show is like, the next version of an Avatar, like with those powers, all the powers. But she's an Avatar without a Voldemort. And for me, that's immensely satisfying and a deeply rich story, because all we ever get is a Luke Skywalker who gets his Darth Vader. But what does Luke, and then when we get Luke without his Darth Vader, they're like, actually, Palpatine's still back. Shut up. It's like we never really get to watch a story, like the hero's journey of what is a hero without a villain. And for me, that's, Korra's so cool. And it does really interesting stuff. But I don't know if you started Korra, if you'd be kind of I don't know. I don't know if I could recommend it without watching Avatar. Although it might be even better.
I don't think I would I would watch it from the beginning if I would.
I just think, because there's like an 80-year gap. And I just think if you started Korra, you wouldn't be like, here's where we're at 80 years later. You'd be like, yep, okay. Do you know what I mean? Like it's...
Yeah.
But I don't want to say skip season 1 of Avatar, because that's like... But,
yeah, they're laying
skip season 1! Just skip it! Be the guinea pig, and then we can push this to the rest of the people. Because honestly, man, season 1 is... If I wasn't someone who could just kind of watch 10 episodes or something, like... When I got into it, it was at a time where I didn't have a full-time job and all these things, where I was just kind of... I just smashed it out in a couple of days and kind of got through. But it's... Yeah. It's not really, I don't know. I hate suggesting things where it's like, well, just watch the first season. It's bad, but it gets good because nothing should get
like
good.
Torchwood. Yeah, I don't want to recommend Torchwood to people, even though the 3rd season is worth it. It's not worth it. It just isn't worth it. But it is. It was worth it.
Okay, let me bring it back down to whatever the fuck we're talking about. I have one issue with this movie. And it's only really
more
one.
than that, but yeah.
No, there's no way. I have one issue with this movie, and then it has the gall, it has the audacity to fucking put in a scene where characters go, "Oh no, the American deities!" And then someone goes to stop a statue of a minion falling over. That happens at the start of the movie when the movie is still good before the movie gets bad. But that is definitely the first sign of the movie going, we're not going to be a good movie. We're going to be offensively bad. Because
I don't think the start of the movie was considerably better than the rest of it, to be perfectly...
No, for sure.
You know what
I just love seeing that big city take the little city, and that, like, Hugo Weaving's like, I'm in charge. Then bloody Balon Greyjoy rocks up, and he's like, I'm small when I'm not in Game of Thrones. How is that possible? I'm so small. And then he's like, I don't know. I just love the dynamic of everything. I love the big... See, I don't know. You said something before about the big sweeping shots of the city. I fucking crave that shit. You've got the fucking...
Sure, from a technical
it just looks so stupidly epic, and I love a city that couldn't be, you know?
But imagine if they had framed the big city just through the view of the girl trying to get on it, and every shot, imagine if that entire opening sequence, we never saw a full shot of the city, and we only got like it in the distance rolling towards them in a dust cloud, and then as it approached, the big doors opening up, and you can just see the top of the city right far off in the distance, and then she's having to fucking wrangle over all this shit being destroyed and get into it and like make that like you get all that opportunity to build that character up and show us who this character is, which I really just don't feel like they do enough of. Like the opportunity is there to establish this character. It's actually something I think The Force Awakens does very well with Rey. Is like everything to do with establishing her is just... You know what it does?
There's no beautiful scavenging and then sitting alone eating breakfast.
It takes its time. It does what Miyazaki films do. It lets you breathe in the world that you're in.
I mean, if we're gonna, even saying Howl's Moving Castle before, I don't mean to imply that I think these films are kind of...
Well, you have, and now we got to knock it down a few pegs. So.
See, but I guess my point was...
But
I guess when you say something like a Miyazaki film, it's like... I just see this as something that's just a different beast. And for sure, what you're saying for a start of a movie, that sounds like the great start to like my favorite movie about a city eating other cities. But this is a big kind of piece of shit that I'd rather just have fun with it than be like, oh, whereas those like minion moments actually like hit me in the gut and I go, oh, no, don't do that. You put money. Someone built that minion statue and like rusted it up and shit, and like
imagine
people
if the
got
whole
paid. Oh my lord!
Imagine if the whole first act is her scaling the city, coming into
it sounds so much better.
Scaling the city, coming into contact with the characters that are going to be with her the rest of the movie, but kind of getting around them, climbing to the top, getting to the citadel, opening it up, just fucking stabs Hugo Weaving, and then gets kicked out of the city and then has to figure out how to get back, and now we have our movie. Act 1's done. Do your weird shit in the middle, and then the movie actually should have been kind of simpler and actually thought a little bit more about its premise and a bit less about, I guess it's trying to lay groundwork for shit that's coming later. Maybe that's what it's doing a bit too much of.
Everything you're saying, it's like, I don't know if I want this movie to be like a good movie. I kind of like it in its schlock form with its zombie fucking anti-hero father figures and its Hugo Weavings, and I don't know. But then again, maybe it's not. Maybe it doesn't take its foot so far into that realm, to be that campy, insane hybrid of a movie. Because it kind of feels like one movie, and then the second act is like, now we're this movie. And then the third act is like, I guess now we're this movie. Where it's like, the third act is real weird. It's like besieging the wall and...
What's their goal? To get through the wall?
So the goal is that... so I was a little confused with the actual lore and universe. Because at one point, they're like, we've left England and we're roaming about as a city. So the cities are still roaming, but the landscape is still divided up into territories the way it is now. where's that prison, right? Like, they get the zombie man from the prison, and they put him there that day, like that week. But it's like, where is that? How did they just go back to the prison? I don't know. There's those little things where I'm like, oh, don't think about it for more than 2 seconds, otherwise you're going to realize this movie makes no sense, potentially.
It does feel very in love with the Star Wars universe, and I almost think that the gun play probably just would have been better if it was just lasers instead of bullets, because there's a very weird part for me was when girl who doesn't belong in the movie, Red Matrix Girl, shows up, and the first thing she does is fire at point blank range a shotgun into a man's head. She blows a man's head off.
Yeah.
No one reacts like that just happened because, as far as the movie's concerned, it was completely bloodless
which is weird because they do show his head. Like, they show his body without a head for like a second.
It's so muddled. It's just, and she's using the shotgun like it's a pistol, and just.
People's faces are being blown off. Like, his entire head disintegrated.
If it was just a laser gun, I would have had more fun with this whole sequence. But something about it being a big shotgun with bullets firing out of it, but you're playing with it like it's that. It's like when the android guy is walking towards the diversity crew as they're all firing their guns.
Yeah, I love that.
And he's like,
you can't touch me.
One guy's like, I got a stick with a knife in it. And she's like, I got a shoe with a knife in it. And he's like, I got a different thing with a knife in it. We'll all try our knives at different points and all get smacked through the floor. Except this one important character who won't get smacked through the floor because he has something to do later. He's just gonna get slowly placed on the floor. And nothing will happen.
Exactly what you mean.
The power level of this creature is impossible. But there's a shot where it cuts back to them all firing their guns. And they just have like a strobe LED light flickering on and off on their faces. And it's like, the poor actors are trying to sell that they're shooting guns. And it just looks absurd with it, the whole thing. None of it's working. It looks awful. Just make it laser guns. Make it laser guns. It all works.
If it's laser guns, I love that. But what's so funny is actually one of my favorite parts of the movie is the scene where they're sitting in a hot balloon. Wait, what is it called? A hot air balloon. Oh, I was going to say hot water balloon. I'm thinking of hot water bottles, I think. You know the reason why I had to buy a hot water bottle for a neighbor recently. She's very elderly and she asked me to buy that. And that's why. And I was like asking someone at the store, like, what am I doing? I'll tell you off the pod, don't worry. But I suddenly realized, but the hot air balloon, they're like, no one fire any, like, don't light any sparks.
Yeah,
and then immediately the zombie rocks up. And I actually really love the effect where he's walking through and he's like, Hester! And his head is smacking through the metal bars. But they're just ripping open because he's so strong. And then he just stands there and they're all like, bang, 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 just shooting and shooting and shooting. And it doesn't affect him. And I actually thought that was really fun because it's like, fuck, he's proper invincible.
Then don't stab him with a knife.
Did the knife kill him? Because I actually remember... It's just interesting because I actually remember disliking his death for another reason. Because he dies because he's like, oh my God, Hester, you're in love with the guy from Misfits and maybe Umbrella Academy if you're up to date with new shows. But it's like...
as soon as I saw him running through a corridor, I thought, that looks like the guy from the Umbrella Academy. Which I also don't care about.
He's actually really... He starts off as probably the most grating character. And by the end, due to story and plot and his powers, he's probably the best. But I think that actor is awesome. I actually think the reason I like this movie is because I just feel bad for him. He was in Misfits season 1 and 2. He's like, I'll be an actor. I'll be a movie star. Not an actor. He'll be a movie star. He went off to be movies and stuff. And then I guess...
John Boyega. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. But did John Boyega get John Boyega? He's in pretty big movies, isn't he?
I mean...
No? I don't know.
He was just such a promising part of The Force Awakens. And
I
don't really feel like he ever backed it up after that. Like, everything he did after Force... Like, he hasn't done anything
I've not seen anything. I was going to say his best movie for me is Attack the Block, and he's fine in that. Yeah, that's before.
Indie small budget thing that gained him. That's what got him Force Awakens.
Oh, really? Yeah.
And then he blows it out of the water with Force Awakens. Like, gives a great performance. The character's engaging. There's so much hope. There's 2 more movies left of this guy. They're gonna do all this cool stuff, and then it doesn't go anywhere. And then he's in like a sequel to another franchise. It's kind of, see, like, that's what I mean.
What else is he in? Like,
he's in the sequel to Pacific Rim, and
I really like him in that. I think he's the best part of that movie, maybe. I don't know, man. I don't think that movie's that bad. I feel like people hate that. It's kind of like this movie, though, where
the point I'm making is John Boyega is not a movie star.
Yes.
I mean, he's been he was in the trilogy, he was in that movie. It's all been financially, whatever, successful, I imagine. But if they backed it up, at the end of the day, it's what your character does in the movies. Sometimes it doesn't even matter if the movie's great. Sometimes you being a good part of a bad thing will accelerate you, and you can be a bad part of a good thing too.
I think maybe that's what's hot John Boyega is. Even, I don't know. I feel like in Last Jedi, my least favorite parts are with him. And then in Rise, it's like, well...
But I think it's exacerbated because there is so much potential we were left with.
Dude, that scene where he's running, and he's like... He's so good in the first movie. Yes. But like, but just that scene where he's running in that big one shot, gets to a close-up of him in the rubble, and he's just screaming. Like that... That's so good, man. I can look at that scene in my brain right now, clear as crystal. He's so good. The bit where he's like, fuck this shit. I'm a fucking coward. Fuck this shit. And he wants to get out of there. It's like, he's so good in that first movie.
Yeah.
And like, he's having fun. He's like a tortured... we don't need to go into this. He's so good. But
they never live up to that,
I actually think this new actor has got the same issue. But I think it might be worse for this guy because he was in a prominent... I think he was in TV just before maybe TV was like... I don't know. It changes each year, obviously, and things, ebb and flow as they do. But I feel like there was a 5 to 10 year period where I was like, movies suck and TV shows are good. So I remember him being like, I'm going to leave Misfits after 2 solid years to be a movie star. And I was like, that's a bad decision. You could be in Misfits for 5 years and be the show. You could be the reason people watch the show. Because he is. He's the character in the first season without powers, but he's the most compelling. He's the best character. And he's probably not even the best character. He's probably the most unlikable. But because of his performance, he's so good. And then I feel like he tried to be in movies like this, where he tried to get a Legolas break, like a, something.
Yeah,
never happened.
Big budget main role.
Big budget main role, main character, and he just keeps getting Mortal Engines. And then someone's like, go back to TV. And then he went back to literally Misfits again. It's Misfits, but Umbrella Academy is essentially Misfits, but just different, kind of.
The Netflix version.
Just the same, but kind of different. I don't know, man. I feel like last week talking to you where you were like, and you weren't even that brutal on the show. You were just like, this and that. And I was like, I feel like you're right. And I feel like every issue I had, I was like, well, there's no issues today because I downloaded 10 hours of content from my fucking iPod on this fucking 25-hour bus to this fucking hellish spot in the middle of fucking nowhere.
Escapism is excellent.
Yeah, I'm on a fucking bus to the middle of hell in Europe. I don't know, so like I have 10 hours of content. So the whole first season, I remember slowly being less invested, but actually more invested in his character. But everything you said, I was like, I have no defense for it. I think you're right. But I've watched the trailer a few times because Netflix it'll play you a fucking trailer as soon as it comes on. Even if you don't, I fucking hate that, man.
Not a fan.
No, it's really to the point though, where Umbrella Academy is so on my feed, I guess, because I watch that kind of content or whatever. Every time I turn it on, it's like, that guy's like, hey, we're in the 60s. Oh, we time traveled. He does that same trailer bit. And I'm like, I'm so sick of this shit, man. Shut up, you little fucking cunt. Shut up. Shut up. Although I did watch a review recently that said that his performance being an old man in a 10-year-old's body is still as compelling. And that was probably my favorite aspect of the season as a whole. Season 1 is just his performance. There's moments where you're like, that is that is a 90-year-old man in a 15-year-old body. That is so good.
Do you know what? One thing that jumped out to me about our Umbrella Academy that made me have a think about something else, because I've been rewatching Doctor Who, as you have recently. Watching his performance made me think, imagine if the Doctor regenerated into a child.
Oh my God.
Like, he could do it. That kid could do it. He could do something like that. You would need to get the right kid. And you could have the kid kind of grow up as the role goes. But that would be a cool way to reinvent the show.
Dude. Oh, I'm so in for the next Doctor to be a child.
Yeah.
That's what... Oh my God, dude. As long...
You got to get the right
As long
kid,
as Arya Stark isn't cast, I'm happy.
She's an adult now. A weird child
Is
adult.
she? Yeah, I guess so.
She's not going to get cast.
That's true.
That
is... Literally, I was taking a sip as you said that, and I had to take half a sip because I didn't want to spit it out. The issue there is, though, then do you get stuck with, like... Child actors, you're always got that issue with the second season. Like, season 3 of Dark specifically doesn't show any Mikkel, which makes season 1 and 2's arcs of, where's Mikkel? When?
It does, but in the alternate timeline, they explained it away, remember?
Yeah,
Magnus
I know.
says he's old
But
enough.
that feels like they had to do that because he aged up.
Well, I don't know, because I think you can
that's
make
me. That's me projecting for sure.
Because Mikkel's stuff is actually done with, before the midway point of season 1 even, and then when we come back to him in season 2, which is a couple of episodes in. I mean, he's kind of there the whole time. We see snippets of him, but a lot of his story is told by the third episode, and then in the second season, a year has gone by, so it makes sense. And then by the third, another year would have gone by, roughly. I mean, the thing is, we're in an alternate reality, so it's an alternate reality.
No. They just totally, had Mikkel at a different point. Write it away very... Like, I wasn't like, but I just...
I don't actually think there's any room for Mikkel in season 3 anywhere.
No,
like, even if they could de-age him, would you put him anywhere? Yeah.
I don't know. I suddenly was just like, I don't want to get into a dark rabbit hole again. I just feel like...
Yeah, because
I fall into an endless loop of...
What we needed was adult Mikkel to come back. That's what I was waiting for.
This is what I'm... Yeah.
Let's not. Because we've got to do a whole other thing.
Yeah, a rewatch of the entire series in maybe 3 months or 2 months or something. That's what I need. It's that... I feel like it was you last week where you were like, I was talking to a friend and I said Star Wars and he just went... I can't. And I feel like that's with me with Dark right now, where I'm like, I saw this video being like, the beauty of Dark. And I'm like, shut up, internet! Shut up! I don't have time for it. I just had a quick cheeky look at my notes to see if I'd missed anything. I had missed the most important part of this movie.
I too took some notes, and I too just realized I missed a couple of not very important but funny things I would like to discuss. But you go first.
Hopefully they coincide. So, I don't know if you remember, but at one point they get captured by slavers. Weird thing is, they're like not slavers at first. They like get like, it's like a scuttlefish or like a centipede kind of like mobile.
That's my favorite design. I actually had that written.
It looks fucking cool, right? Yeah.
It's because it's like a leg that has like a, what do you call it? Like a piston shooting out at the ground and hitting the ground, but in that weird bug formation, and they all kind of, it operates almost exactly like the creature would, and it just very satisfying to look at. I felt like I would have liked to see more interesting design stuff like that.
It's weird though how when they get captured by them, they're like, have some tea, it's made of algae. He's like, oh, it's delicious. And she's like, it's algae out of my butt or whatever. And he's like, oh, gross. And then like, classic humor, as you'd expect. And
I thought with that joke, I thought that he was going to go, ooh, when she said algae, but then I was like, oh no, they eat algae on the ship anyway, so he's used to algae. But then just had to take it another step.
Yeah, near the sewage or whatever. But it's like, that scene doesn't make it seem like they're slavers. And then like 10 seconds later, she's in the thing being like, leave, get out the exit hole. I can't jump for some reason. Who cares? My leg's sore or whatever. And he's like, I won't do it. We're best friends now. Their love and the way they fall in love, there's no good. But they get taken to the Slavers auction. The Slavers auction for me is visually something for some reason I really like seeing. Like just an auction where it's like, you know, like an auction like in the OC where they're doing high bids for big jewels and stuff, but it's for people. I always find that bizarrely entertaining for some reason. But this was really bad, I feel. It was up there with Game of Thrones' slave auction in terms of just being so cheap and shitty. But what I noted was that the slave owner that puts them out for bidding, like the realist, like the main guy, his jacket is made exclusively of buttons. And I found that just, I had to pause it and I looked at it for like a minute, just being like, what is going on here? And all I thought was, okay, you've got, so each shirt you usually have is like 6 buttons, maybe 3, right? You got 6 if it's a whole, you can open up the whole thing, or you got like 3 maybe if it's just the top collar bit, right? Dude's got like 2,000, 4,000 buttons on his jacket. It's just so many shirts you've dissected to make this one shirt. And I simply thought that was fucking fantastic. And I just thought that was worth
Thumbs up for button shirt.
Yes, I don't know. It's like if you go, years before you said all the costumes were wrong. You're right, they're all wrong. I love Hugo Weaving's wavy jacket, high rich man kind of get up, and his nice, perfect silky hair.
If you live in a disgusting, like decrepit, broken down, rusty ship, you should have those clothes to match. Yeah,
but he doesn't though. He does. Like Hugo Weaving doesn't. Do you see his house? It's a bloody... I kind of love that like 25 seconds we get when... This really feels like almost like it was 2 movies that they were like put into the... I don't know. There's a lot of stuff where it's like, we see his house for 5 fucking seconds. Why did they build... Like, you know what I mean? Like it's...
What a waste of money.
Yeah. There's a bit where they're running through a thing and I just remember being like, what the fuck? Like... They're running through, like, there's a bit where she's, like, looking at this statue and it's got all the face head things and she's like, Medusa. And then she sees the eye on the head of the statue and she's like, oh my God. And she looks at the eye thing, she opens it up and it's got the Medusa thing inside. But she then runs looking for Tom. She's like, character from Misfits, where the fuck are you? She's running about looking for him at the end. And there were so many different little alleyways she was running through. It's just... I don't know, man. It's what you're coming back to at the start, where it's spectacular set design, but it has this weird, hyper-realistic color grade on it. And it actually... I don't think you said that before. I think you implied it was something else, but I think it's just the color grade, man. I think there's something they're doing, though, to the color grade that makes it feel more... It reminds me of The Hobbit, man. Like, the color... looks like the skies, the purple skies are just like that touch too purple. It's just that hyper realism that reminded me very much of The Hobbit. Like in Rivendell and The Hobbit, it looks good, but it looks better in Lord of the Rings, you know? Yeah, I don't know. Yeah.
It looks better because it's in lower resolution and you're actually seeing an inferior, like Rivendell. Rivendell looks spectacular in The Hobbit in the wide shot. But there's still something about it that just... actually, no, the first Hobbit film, I think a lot of the CGI cities and stuff look pretty good, and they did a pretty good job of, like, replicating the miniatures for...
But there's a weird colour difference.
It's not colour, it's sharpness. It's the clarity of the image. Yeah. It's when everything is... When you can see the detail of everything...
too much
you lose magic. It's like you can when you see Gandalf's staff, which is essentially the same prop in all 6 movies. It looks good in Lord of the Rings, and it looks shitty in the Hobbit movies. And it looks shitty because it is
too
shitty.
Much detail.
It's a shitty prop. It's made out of fucking rubber or whatever, because he's got to smack people with it sometimes, and then he's got a heavy one, and then it's like...
Don't they use different ones when he hits
Of course! And some of them look like shit, and sometimes the close-up has the shit one in it, because that's the only take you got of that. So the problem is that the cameras are over-resolving the detail in the images, because we want to capture exponentially more and more information, and more color information, and more sharpness, and more detail, less, sometimes it's good to have kind of muddy, grainy, noisy shadows. Like the best thing about the movie Collateral is kind of the grain and the textural quality of the shitty DV cameras that he's shooting on and capturing the city and making it feel kind of grimy and, in alleyways and the backs of streets, and like there is an aesthetic appeal to grain and blur and all of these elements of filmmaking that were kind of not mistakes but just limitations of the medium. You could only shoot certain images and light them certain ways, and when you over resolve something that is very low resolution, like a prop, I mean the Weta people do the best prop work on earth. They make the best costumes, they build the best sets, they have the best visual effects. Everything about this movie is.
So you'd say the cameras are maybe the issue? Is that to pinpoint, or
you
can just pinpoint, but
they shoot.
It's the actual camera itself.
It's high resolution digital cameras
that's crazy shit, man.
Are so crystal clear and resolve details so well. There's no noise in the images anymore. The noise they're adding is artificial to make it look more like film a lot of the time. Because, my fucking cameras, which cost very little, if you light correctly, the images are really sharp and you can get a lot of detail out of them.
Well, we never really had issues before they moved to this. Like, no one was looking at movies being like, I wish it was, I don't know, everything worked fine. It's weird that we went from a Lord of the Rings to Hobbit into this so quickly.
But people
quickly.
Well, it was over
quickly is relative, but it seems quick,
Well, think about it. Lord of the Rings is the beginning of the 2000s, and at that point, a lot more miniatures, but CGI
that's 20 years old now, isn't it? It's so old. It's like almost as old as I am.
What, 2001, 2002, 2003, and it's the same era as the Star Wars prequels. The Star Wars prequels have more miniatures than the rest of Star Wars combined.
See, the prequels look like they're more Hobbit than Lord of the Rings, though, right?
But they're not. There's a foot in both.
Fascinating.
The problem, so that's why I think The Phantom Menace, and if you watch the prequel trilogy on your TV now, you will come out the other end going,
I do every week, Kieran.
The Phantom Menace looks better because it's shot on film, and the miniatures look incredible. Like, look at Naboo; it's all miniatures. It's all
Naboo
beautiful.
looks
all the
ships. Best. Naboo's definitely
the ships
the bit
looks
that I noticed
excellent. Now jump to episode 2. Everything
the worst looking one though.
They're still
3
using.
Comes back a bit.
They're still using miniatures in episode 2. More miniatures produced for episode 2 than each film. More miniatures are produced than the last one. Going up to episode 3. The problem is episode 2 is the first theatrically released feature film that's shot entirely digitally, and it was only shot in 2K, which is just slightly higher than 1080p. So you'll never get a 4K version of Attack of the Clones because they didn't actually shoot it in 4K.
Looks like, it doesn't even look like they shot it on 2K. It looks weird. It's got, that's
well, it's not just,
for some reason.
It has the worst dynamic range. The sensor has the worst color. It's not just the pixel density. It's not just the sharpness that a camera does. There's the color science in a camera, and there's the light to dark areas. If you're shooting a subject in shadow, old camera technology will, the rest of the subject will be the rest of the area will be too bright if you expose for the darker part. And if you expose for the light part, then it will be very, very dark. And camera technology, as it develops, the dynamic range, so that's the difference between the lightest and the darkest part of the image. It gets wider and wider as the technology gets better and better. So we're at the point now where you can resolve an image that's very dark and very light in the same image, and you can tweak it in post-production and fiddle with the colors and move things around. And like I can do it with my cameras, where there was a period of time where you couldn't do that. You're exposing for the image on celluloid, and what you get is what you get. And you can maybe tweak it a little bit, but you're not fundamentally changing the image like we're doing now. everything is digital. This movie is more an animated movie than a lot of animated movies are.
Yeah, it reminded me of like your avatars and I don't know, parts of a Star Wars and stuff where it's very. It's what I was saying before, where it's like I don't know. I almost don't notice some of the CGI because it's just like a CGI city eating another CGI city on a CGI world ground thing. So it's like it's just you shut off like, oh, that doesn't look right. It's like, well, it just looks. Do you know what I mean? I don't know.
For me, I almost would have preferred if they just doubled down into one or the other, and they went like
animated movie. Do you mean or?
Or no, just like the sets maybe needed a little bit more CGI, which probably sounds like a weird thing to say, but it probably would have blended with the exterior a little better for me, and it just seemed like a lot of the sets they had looked very Doctor Who. You know what I mean? To me,
it reminded me of Rise of Skywalker and Doctor Who. It looked really, really good, but on this weird cheap level. Like, there's a city in Rise of Skywalker where I've heard that they built the city. They're like, we built this whole city, every single pebble you see, and it's where, lady, you don't see my face except for that 2 seconds that I came to set and see my face.
Bliss.
Sure. I won't give her the credit to remember her name. Zora, whatever the fuck. Don't give a shit.
They got her name out of the Star Wars name generator.
Is that the same way that they get the Family Guy jokes, right? From the South Park episode? Manatees, that's it. I was like, what animal was it? Yeah, bloody manatees.
Choosing ping pong balls or something.
Yeah, ping pong balls with words on it. We have an adjective and 2 verbs or whatever it is. It's so good. And a famous person's name or whatever. That's how we make our joke. That's so fucking funny. What an episode. What are we talking about?
Zori Bliss, City, Rise of Skywalker.
That city looks sick, kind of, but part of me is like, or does it look really cheap and bad? And there's just this, I don't know, I think this movie has the same where a lot of the cityscape they run through, I feel like, oh, there's a lot of detail here. But there's a weird, and I think you are right. I don't know. You're the camera guy. You know. I'm just seeing what I see and, can respond how I respond. But hyper-realism, I think, you've said that before when I remember once telling you that Azog, in some of the Hobbit scenes, I'm looking at him being like, what the fuck? He looks better than the Hobbit does. Like, he looks more real. But that's that hyper-real thing where he's got so much detail that our faces with our smooth, silky, beautiful skin, with our sweet, sweet makeups all over it, looks too, like, smoothed out and rounded. There's not enough old man grit and grain on there yet.
Azog has like stretch marks on his face, and
he looks so good, man. Azog looks perfect until you put up a photo of him where he looks like where you put up him against Gothmog, the season 3. Sorry, the third movie, Return of the King, orc, the disfigured orc that gets fucked over by Gimli and Aragorn at the end, and he's like the figurehead of the third movie. And then you look at those two, and that's the only way I can tell that Azog looks bad is looking at them two together, frame by frame, image by image. Whereas in the movie The Hobbit, because the whole thing has no grain and it's got that Mortal Engines bloody CGI feel to it, or the camera feel, as you put it, with the too many Ks or whatever.
The resolution's too high, and there's not enough kind of being left to your imagination. Sometimes allowing details to, like, what you build a set and then you light the set and you light it for the atmosphere of the scene that you're going
and then you
for.
hide
so,
it's
and then what you're doing is you're selling the illusion of reality because it's a set. And if you show me with an 8K camera what this set looks like, I don't think it looks very good. But if you get a haze machine in and you
hide half of the machine,
turn half your lights off, shine a big bright light through the window, get some haze and dust in the room, put your character in the middle of it, slowly dolly in, and leave some of it for my imagination to fill in. Now you've just sold me on this set. But unfortunately, there's just not a lot of that going on in this movie because they don't have they're not thinking about what is this scene doing to progress the plot? It's
what?
let's run through the city as it gets chopped up and narrowly dodge things that would be impossible for any human. And we would
there's
inevitably...
a lot of running about and avoiding impossible objects, but that's very Hobbit dwarves running from CGI fire kind of.
It's everything running from CGI anything, as far as I'm concerned. If you're running from a CGI element and there's nothing there to ground it back in, then I'm immediately disconnected and just bored. And I don't care what you're showing me. I'm just like, it's Padme in Attack of the Clones running through the fucking shit. The machines making
machines making machines.
Which is why it makes me so happy when Anakin just rocks up and chops all the shit down.
Kills everybody.
Like, that's what you should do with this sequence.
Everyone.
Just chop it all up.
Yeah, I guess my brain just honestly, it could be like a mood thing. Like because of lockdowns and it's like I have nothing but my movies to enjoy, but something about this movie makes me feel like I just want to be on its side. I don't know, man. I don't know if it's maybe I just love the book and then I will hate this movie forever. Like it could be the elements of the book, like the zombie father figure, stepdad. No, he's not stepdad. What is he? He's a foster dad. Like it's.
It's the thing we always talk about, that everything is bad unless you make it good. And they didn't try to make it good in the areas they needed to.
But, see, I guess I just see so much... It's not even money put in, but I feel like how many cunts fucking made these sets and like I think enough of it looks pretty good. And I like even the CGI monster doomsday weapon has this weird purple-blue vibe to it that, like, there's a shot where it, like... Hugo Weaving's like, pump up the machine, jack it up, and the lady's like, oh, I don't know about this, and he's like, fucking do it, and there's a shot where he's kind of like, oh, and the camera like moves like Dutch tilt over his face and pans up the machine 100 meters up in the air, and I don't know, there was something stupidly Frankenstein, but on kind of a crack, like he's just, I don't know, so many elements of this film I really did enjoy, and yeah, I don't know. I felt like I was someone who maybe loved... Like, it's like I'd loved the book and was watching something I loved, being like, oh, come on, give it a go. Don't be so hard on it, But I don't know why that is. It's just something about it. Like, even the main character, she's not really anything. And then she's suddenly like, I did this because of this. There's a scene where she's like, we're not going to do this. We're not going to have the one-on-one emotional moment. He's like, what? And she's like, we're not going to do this. You can't help me. I can't help you. And then about 15 minutes later, she's like, so this is my sad, emotional backstory moment. And he's like, oh my God. And none of it's working. It's all bad, but I don't know.
Do you remember when they do that with the robot, when the robot's dying and he's like, I'm having my sad, emotional backstory moment?
What do you mean? Yeah, all the bits where it cuts to like the green footage and the daughter's like throwing paint in his face. And they're like,
but you can tell that they only had one day to shoot all the flashback sequences for the robot on that one set.
Why would you spend more than one day doing that shit? You're not going to give her another costume.
I don't know, because you care about the movie and you want to make it look like you put some fucking effort in. Maybe have her hair tied up in one and have it out in another. That'll differentiate it.
Jared, we didn't hire two makeup artists. What am I made of money?
How about it's $100 million movie? Instead of spending $54 million on the big CGI fucking laser beam, instead that you tie your hair up for one of those things. How about that? I don't know. Call me crazy.
He might have... No, you know what it was, Kieran? So you're not thinking about the movie properly. What it was is he was remembering his one perfect day with her.
I hate it. I
barely heard you say I hate it over my own laughter.
Can we talk about a good change that George Lucas made to the original trilogy of Star Wars?
Let's go. Let's move completely. Go. What?
It'll tie back into this movie.
I hope it doesn't. Go.
but give the man credit where it's due. I think
everything. I love him so much. Sorry, go.
I wouldn't go that far. But anyway, I think one of the good changes that he made in revising the Star Wars original trilogy was taking all the English out of the movie, all the written words that initially were not alien languages. that really kind of detracted.
When was this change made?
Probably 97, I would imagine. That's when most of the changes were made, and then additional changes were made DVD and Blu-ray release. But the big ones were made then. So
I don't remember there being English. That's crazy. So go on.
For example, if you want to, you would have when Obi-Wan is shutting down the tractor beam on the Death Star.
Yeah, it's got the
some of the control panels
and hieroglyphs or whatever, right?
But if you watch the despecialized or the original, exactly, it's a vaguely Asian-y language,
but with an alien kind of twinge on it. Yeah, characters less than letters. Yeah.
Yeah, so that I think was a good move. I think that was where he realized, all right, the aesthetic I want, the illusion that I want to kind of have in this universe is that, you know, we shouldn't be recognizing the written word in these worlds. I mean, it makes little sense that we recognize the spoken word, but we have to buy that.
I don't want to fucking listen to subtitles if I don't.
Of course, exactly. And you can do that every now and then. You know, it comes to mind the alien language in Force Awakens, which is just like a bastardized like Thai or Laos or something like that from the Raid guys.
It might have been Indonesian because I think they're.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah. That's cool. Because you don't want to put Indonesian in maybe because then it's like, well, it's Star Wars. But,
so it's just an alien
you also
language.
maybe want to, that's cool. I don't mind that at all. Yeah.
The point I'm getting to here is that in Mortal Engine, sorry, I forgot the name of the movie.
It doesn't matter.
There's terrible, like Stranger Things style font everywhere. All the
really, I don't
the propaganda and like there's
all the London. There's a lot of American war propaganda, but it says London. Yeah. I avoided that. I looked at what I wanted to look at.
You're so far in the future that just make it like a vaguely alien thing. And if you put the just general gist of the propaganda poster together with unrecognizable language, I'll get what you're going for. But the terrible like 80s Stranger Things style font is taking me out of the movie right now. And then later in the movie, they find like a computer, I think, to activate the weapon or something like that, like a case.
Oh, and they open the Doomsday, the nuclear...
It has the same font!
First. Yeah,
it's got the same fucking font as earlier in the movie. It's just little details like that just keep me going, like, just put nothing there. Just put nothing. And we get it. We get there's buttons and there's wires. We know. You're not doing any more with this anyway. You don't need to show it.
If anything, you want to have that be the first time we see the English language. Because then you're like, oh, I remember, like our time. Because it's meant to be now. I don't think we should ever. But it's meant to be now. So if they open the football case of the Doomsday weapon, because that's essentially a nuclear device, they've just changed the words to be all like, it's a purple explosion. Don't think about nuclear power. It's a fun movie. You know. But it's essentially meant to be, what if nuclear bombs went off today and in 1,000 years everyone was running around in cities on wheels for some reason?
Except it's not really as bad as a nuclear bomb. It didn't seem like... You know,
no, there's I think he had a weaker version maybe though, did he? Because he kind of bastardized because he got the codes. What's weird is he got a box with the codes, but he kind of bastardized, like created this like contraption that was the actual gun weapon himself beforehand. I don't know.
You paid attention way more than I did.
Well, I have. So I have seen this 3 times now.
Okay.
But I don't know. I mean, there's something weird about this movie that I found very compelling, and I can't grasp it. But I think it is because it doesn't work, and that it's 3 movies in one. I like that. I like that the father figure, foster dad / anti-hero / the secondary villain of the movie is in 45 minutes of the movie and then not in it for Act 1 or Act 2, but he narrates the start of the movie for some reason. Yeah, he's like, the 60-minute war. It was all it took to destroy the world. And it's like, I love his cowboy aesthetic. I love he feels like a Doctor Who villain for sure, you know, like his green eyes, I love that, like, they're climbing over this big wheel that's spinning, and then he's just riding on it, like sailing on it, like just he stands there, he just appears as the wheel comes around. He just looks so. I like him a lot as a villain, but I want more. And I feel like I have this weird thing where I'm like, oh, it doesn't make perfect sense, but I bet you if I read the book, the zombie demon foster father guy in it all, his death, because in the movie, to me, he kind of realizes she's in love with him, like the male guy from Misfits, and then he just dies. Like he was like, oh, I was here to kill you, but now you're in love, I can just die. And that doesn't work at all. But part of me is like, I feel like it just, I don't know. Maybe I just needed to watch something stupid and dumb this week. I don't know. I've been watching so much good stuff as well. It's not like I've been watching nothing but the news or something. So I just needed to escape. I've been watching fucking Doctor Who and loving it. I've been crying and weeping and laughing all week. Then I just chucked this on and I'm like, fuck yeah, this is... I don't even know what this is. This is just so stupidly...
Funny, because I've had almost an identical experience, but watched the movie in very different ways.
Yeah, I
don't... I've been watching Doctor Who and loving it, and then I put this on and I went, what the fuck?
And I just went, it really does, though. Like, it truly feels like this is a Doctor Who episode where the Doctor rocks up and he's like we see the machine, the city eating a city, but then he rocks up and he does a thing. He's like throwing his screwdriver about. There's some music playing. He's doing a thing. He realizes the moral conundrum of why one big city must eat the other small city. He comes to a realization of how to fix it. Everyone's like, ooh, that one guy that's a bit sus maybe dies. We don't have to deal with him. Then it ends and he jumps off into his little box and escapes.
You know what's funny is when I initially saw the trailer and the concept for this movie, I thought that it was going to be a big metaphor for colonialism and, the West, impoverishing other nations and stealing from the poor. You know what? I really just thought that the metaphor is right
we
to
watched
mine.
Different trailers.
I wanted to see more city eating city or more city eating stuff.
100%. If literally this was Mad Max Fury Road, but the first 25 minutes for an hour and a half, I would. This would be my favorite. This would be my second favorite movie next to Mad Max. Because it's such a crazy idea. Like a steampunk kind of... Yeah. I mean, honestly, this movie's probably no good just because it should be that.
Yeah.
And I can kind of see why you'd hate that. But, okay, just one thing, because I'm going to forget, and it's just come to mind, and then we can go back to why it sucks. But there's a point in every dystopian movie, or utopian, dystopian, we're in a world where it's a metaphor. Do you get it? It's a metaphor. We've gone extreme, but it's a metaphor kind of movie.
Utopia good, dystopia bad, yeah?
Yes, sure. All utopias are probably bad, though, right? Isn't that also... Mm-hmm. I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
let's not get into it.
There's no such thing.
Exactly. But there's like... a moment in all of these movies, and I say this because I'm writing, but I have been writing for 1,000 billion years. My feature film where everyone's a bloody cannibal, world of cannibals. I made all those short films, Human Inside. But in my short film, it's like it's a suburbia. It's a suburban world. We're all in suburbia. There's a McDonald's, but they sell humans. All the blah 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 blah. But then at one point in your second act, we escape, and in my world, it's like a desert, world, and you escape and. There's that moment where you're kind of on the fringes of society. You see beyond what the government wants to see. You go, blah, 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 blah. Every movie has it. Mad Max has it. And I think that's probably where I've gotten most of my visual
iconography.
Fuck yeah. Every time I go to say that word, I'm just going to clap. And you take that cue to say the word. But like every kind of film has that moment in the dystopian world where we're like, now we see that. The Divergence movies have it, and it's no good. I'm sure
like
Hunger
when
Games
they went the Maze Runner. It's a maze.
Now we're in the maze. Yeah, now we're in the maze. Now we're
in the real maze.
Now we're in the
maze.
Oh my god!
The real maze is a big city or something.
Actually, I love the first Maze Runner. That's really fun. The second two are no good, but.
Do you know why the first Maze Runner works? Because it delivers exactly what it promises. It is nothing more. It never tries to be more. It knows exactly what it is, and it does. A pretty adequate job of being exactly the movie that you expect it to be. Yeah, and there's no shame and there's no, you know, I guess it could have been a bit more on the nose, or it could have taken itself a little bit more seriously, or you could have gone either way there, but it's perfectly serviceable. I didn't watch the last one though.
It's no good.
So I guess it just...
It's like this movie. It's just become so much more than cities eating cities that it's like, what am I watching now? Is this Star Wars?
Yeah, put him in a fucking maze.
Yeah, exactly.
Run through a goddamn maze.
Maze Runner 2 and 3 should have just been... They just are in another maze. Hunger Games style. Halfway through Hunger Games 2, they're like, hey, you thought it was a propaganda movie about war? Twist, you're just in a maze again, bitch. Run through a Hunger Games. And then the twist of the
third movie is that it's...
No Hunger Games!
And then
nothing but people looking at screens. You're going to be bored. So bored. I hate that movie. But I haven't seen the fourth one, so maybe, you know, I've watched someone load a gun, but I didn't see them fire it, so...
Wait, the fourth Hunger Games? You didn't see it?
No, I didn't. The third one I hated so much. I saw it in the movies with my brother.
Yeah, because it's the worst ever. But the fourth one has a really good ending.
I think you told me about this last week, potentially.
Yeah, I might have.
I don't know if I'm ever going to want to... Yeah, I don't remember
I think I
already.
did.
That's how much I care. I've already
I figured you would watch them all because you've brought them up a couple of times. So I might not have even known I was spoiling it.
I probably mentioned it a lot because I used to hate it because it was like vaguely similar to Battle Royale, the Japanese movie. And as someone who'd seen that years ago, I was just like, why is everyone... It made me angry as like I was in that kind of group of people, I was alone, but there was, you know, when I was 18, 19 or whatever, and it was like, Hunger Games, big Hollywood blockbuster. And you've got thousands of girls screaming at the airports, being like, oh, we love Hunger Games. And I'm just like, this is just shitty Hollywood PG Battle Royale. Battle Royale is better. Battle Royale makes more sense because it's like, who cares if a bunch of children have to kill children? You know what's fucked up? A school bus of kids having to do that. Because you know what that means? Imagine being on your bus to school with every single classmate you have to hang out with all day. Now you have to fucking kill each other. That's a movie. That's fucked up. And all the good moments of Battle Royale come from because they're classmates. And I always found that the most compelling aspect of the, like, being kind of a teenager kid age. I wasn't like, kids killing kids. That's crazy. Maybe more as an adult, I'm like, oh, that's pretty sad. Lord of the Flies style. But it's that aspect of Battle Royale. Then there's like the teacher that kind of gets involved in it and just... And, you know, it's not bloodless. There's so many elements that at that age, I was so in for that. And Hunger Games made me so angry. So I feel like I was just very vocal about Hunger Games for a long time. And then I watched it and I was like, this is pretty fun. You know, it's like a Hollywood version, but the first one's pretty good. And the second one, the first 45 minutes, is incredible, in my opinion. It's so good. What I love in a movie that's like this, a dystopian movie, is we get to the point where we're like, break out of the society, break out of the mold. And in this movie, that means our heroes are walking through a wasteland that is giant tread marks from the cities. And I think the actual presentation of it and the visual, it all worked for me. I loved it all. I think maybe it doesn't make any sense because if the cities were constantly moving around all the time, the ground would just be fucked at this point. There'd be no just straight lines of like tire marks. It'd just be tire marks over tire marks over tire marks. Like if you go onto like a dirt bike range and the tire marks, you know, it's all messy, it's muddy. It's just chaos. And that's why your car gets bogged or whatever. I think that's what it would actually look like. But take away the realism for a second and just go for the vague idea and the spectacle and the whimsical nature and the feeling, the beauty. A movie can take you if you kind of shut off 2/3 of your brain. Not that you should have to.
I want the movie to fucking double down some more in the whimsy, you know? Like, come on.
Sure.
Like, how long have we lived in a world with Miyazaki's films and people haven't learned the very simple things you can do to make the moments work? Like, he's having to sell 2D animation as real life, and he makes it more real life than all of these live action movies do somehow. You know, like, makes it feel like more real and like lived in and organic. And I don't know, there's just I think a lot what happens with these movies is that the creative teams forget to just spend a bit of time doing something good with the concept. Like, take the concept and just give us a sequence where some characters develop their relationship and do something inconsequential that's just kind of, like I said, scale the city. I don't know. There's almost a part of it where they're kind of climbing and they have to grab onto the wheel and it rolls over to the other wheel and then it rolls over again. And I for a moment I thought, oh, they're going to fucking do it. They're going to scale it.
I know exactly what bit you mean. Yeah.
But then they're on a ledge and then they're on the rope and then they're off in the sky. And I'm like, well, now we're in the sky in completely new vehicles. And I'm even further detached again from the premise that I'm meant to be getting into here. Like, can we not go off into the sky for a bit and just sell me on this first?
But I think no. Okay, so before I rebut, I just want to say you are right that if you don't feel like you've got enough ground stuff, the divergence up into the sky is too sudden, and it's like whoa. I want to touch this stuff, first. Whoa. But I think the idea, generally speaking, not that the movie technically does it or does it well at all, but the idea is that we have been grounded and in this world on the floor with these machines and these wheels hitting the ground, and we've been running through their tracks on the ground and escaping that and all this stuff. And then you're like, what are the rebels doing? How are they rebelling against this ground force tank city world of car city things? And it's like, oh, they're in the sky. Oh, they're in this hot air balloon base hiding away in the clouds. And I actually think that's fucking cool. Don't you think? That's where the rebels are? They're in the sky?
Maybe if they took the time to make... No, because I think that a premise can be cool, but I think you have to make the premise cool. Yeah, the premise can be good. The sound of the premise can be good. But if you don't take that premise and then mold it into something that I actually want to see, and I want to see I want to see lived up to, I want if your premise is as grand and ridiculous as this, and I'll buy it, and I bought it, and I'm sitting down, and I'm going to watch a movie, I'm going to pay attention for 2 hours, and you've got my attention. Now wow me with the premise. And you didn't. You squandered it, and you did really just the easiest thing at every turn. And everything felt so by the numbers, and just, I'd seen this before. I've seen this sequence before. I've seen this character beat before. I've seen this visual effect before. I've seen a movie wrap up this way before. I've seen everything about this before. How many more times can I watch Hugo Weaving be kind of menacing? And I mean,
one more time.
For me, it was probably one time too many.
Oh my god!
nothing in it validates its own existence. There's no sequence in this movie that makes me glad that they created it. And
I'm so glad they.
The closest they get is, you're right, at the beginning, to living up to the premise that they've chosen to tackle. But apart from their opening, it's somewhat inconsequential that they're in a big moving city.
Do you think that... And this absolutely isn't me trying to... I've been trying to defend the movie, but this isn't a defense. This is just often I find it more interesting to try and go, okay, why? So for instance, there was and I'm only going, for some reason, Harry Potter came to mind. It was Harry Potter made the bizarre decision in episode 6 to not have the final battle, because the next movie they were going to have a final battle. But then they didn't,
because then they had another movie with no battle.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's why that's it came to mind. It's when you say that, you're well, 6 to 7, you don't want big Hogwarts battle. And I'm that you don't. But if you have a 7th movie that is literally not at Hogwarts, you can totally bookend that with episode 6. Sorry, fuck, it doesn't matter. Movie 6. Whatever. Movie 6 having...
It's also different because the Hogwarts gets knocked down in the last battle.
Oh, no. The battles are different, but
it's a battle within Hogwarts. It's the Death Eaters coming in, and it's I think on their way out is when the battle happens.
Yeah, no, it's an escape battle. It is I've always thought they should have the battle. Last week, or a couple of weeks ago off the pod, you definitely mentioned it, and it's been eating at me since then, because I'm I always feel like I defend those movies when we talk because I just love them. But that is such an issue. But it might have come from a decision before they actually locked in the decision to split 7 and 8. And if 7 was one movie, I would totally be fine with 6 not having the battle because that's what 7 will mostly be. There's
a weird part in 6 where they all deviate, run outside and burn down Hagrid's hut. Which doesn't happen.
It's the bar. It's not Hagrid's hut. It's the burrows. They do kill Hagrid's hut. But you're talking about the middle of the movie when they attack the burrows? No,
I'm talking about 6 at the end.
At the end.
Instead of doing the Hogwarts battle, they go and just destroy Hagrid's hut.
Yeah, they do.
That's what they do instead.
But I think what they actually do instead... No, but what they actually do instead, I think, is they go to the burrows halfway through the movie and they burn that down. That's the action scene they use instead of the end. Because it's still Bellatrix Lestrange. She's still yelling, I kill Sirius, which I kind of figure she might do in the book, which I don't remember. But I think it's the same kind of... the savagery and the brutalness of a villain coming to somewhere we love, coming to a landmark we love, and fucking burning shit down. That feeling...
It's there in the next movie. They have a fucking wedding there.
I don't. It's really good, the wedding, too, because it's so... It's like the ministry's dead, it's blah, 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 blah. But it's...
burning a house down in a magical universe is irrelevant.
No,
and
for sure.
Nothing.
Yeah. For sure. But I think that's just what they... Honestly, this is... I'm just picking something that I think is vaguely the same. Just in terms of... I think they thought, we're doing 6 and we're going to do 7. So let's do it like this. So that in 7, when halfway through, it's just Battle of Hogwarts. It's not like, hey, we just did this. But obviously, with the switch up of 7 being 2 movies, that's totally irrelevant. My only point was, the only reason to bring up Harry Potter was that maybe big city eating little city would be the entire of the second movie in this trilogy. Because I imagine the YA novels had 2 to 3 books, probably 3 or 4 books. But they could do 3 movies. And that's probably what they wanted to do. I cannot imagine a universe where this movie was made where they didn't intend to make 2 and 3 or 4 or 5 or 6. Do you know what I mean? That's just not really the world we live in when this movie came out. So part of me was just hypothesizing, maybe you hold off on the cities eating cities and blah, 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 because you're essentially just doing the first movie. Your Fellowship of the Ring, where there is no war battle. And then the second one, you have a war.
Because the difference is that's like promising Star Wars and then not having a fucking Star War. Yeah, you've promised me big fucking...
But they did do that at the start. So they promised and then it just happens to be at the start, not the end. Because you only need to do it once. Cities eating cities. We do
it's not even a city. It's like 4 cars strapped together that all drive in different directions. It's not.
But that's the... I mean, if it's a big, big city eating another big city, they're not going to eat each other. They would just crash and then it would be over. They'd just explode and die. Like at the end, he's not crashing his city into the wall so the city survives. I don't know why you're defending a film that is 2/3 not doing its premise. More, even. It's because, 3/4 not doing the thing it told you it was going to do. 2/3 it's not doing its premise, but 1/3 it has a zombie foster father who's a zombie with green eyes. He's in a big cage. How'd they get him in the cage? Why is he a robot? How is he a robot? How is this technology different and separate to the cities? I love it, and I'm so confused. You'll never change my mind. My brain like hit a switch, you know, and I just went, I like it. It's dumb and makes no sense, but I like this.
Spoiler Talk is produced by KCBN Studios and Space Kraken Media.